Hi YouTube, Francis here. I just thought I would share with you parts of a book review for Encountering the Dark Goddess, Journey to the Shadow Realms, that I came across on my publisher's website, that's Moon Books, because it's really nice to read a review of your book or of a project that you have been giving your life, heart and soul into for nearly 20 years, and to have the reviewer get you. And especially in this day and age where I suppose shadow work and dark goddesses, or the darkness of craft, the aesthetics of it, seems to be very popular, and everybody's running around saying, oh, I've dealt with my shadow work, or yes, I align myself with the dark goddess. Understanding, or finding people who understand how you personally work with her, and what is it when you put something together such as a book, and having somebody, it's almost like they've got inside your head and they get it, is really a humbling experience. So much gratitude to Sarrah October Young from Musing Mystical, which I will put the link below so you can actually read the review if you're interested in its entirety, as well as have a look at everything else on their website. I'll also put below my publisher's contact details for where you can purchase the book, because it was published at the end of March, beginning of April this year, 2021. So Sarah begins her review by saying one of the most fascinating elements of human psyche is the penchant we have for self-reflection. In some form or another, we often dive deep within ourselves to try and find the answers that we know deep within us. In her book, Encountering the Dark Goddess, A Journey into the Shadow Realms, Frances Billinghurst, that's me, has carved a path for us to tread in our personal search for the answers we need in order to evolve and become better versions of ourselves. Now, one thing that Sarah confesses to, which I'm just so grateful that she has, because I don't do this in every single book, is that she states that I almost always read intro sections provided, because I feel they form the basis or foundation of what the writer is trying to get across. And indeed, my intro section is some 12 pages long, so it's almost like a chapter in itself. Knowing where Billinghurst sits in terms of who she feels the dark goddess is, because there's so many interpretations out there these days, and how she perceives her, yes, there's just as many interpretations and perceptions, is valuable information to me. It helps me to expand my knowledge. No matter your knowledge level, I highly recommend reading the introduction section to ensure you gain some insight, or the same insight. Now, I'm just trying to multitask. I don't know how successful I'm going to be. Okay, Billinghurst provides substantial background on the origin of the dark goddess and challenges our collective fear of the darkness. And in doing that, I talk about how we come from darkness, which is the womb, and how we go to darkness at the end of our days, which is the tomb. And this is the concept that is found often within, well, my particular style of contemporary witchcraft. By making such comparisons, she is effectively building a case as to why we should embrace the darkness and perceive it as a helper rather than something to being feared. She also makes a valid point about balance, which I happen to agree with her. The need to have both light and dark in one's life is essential for moving forward and growth, whereas too much of either is potentially limited. In the section entitled Meeting the Dark Goddess, caught my eye straight away, for Billinghurst delving into 13 different representations of the Dark Goddess. She weaves together aspects of the Dark Goddess from across a variety of practices and belief systems, something which is often attempted but poorly executed. So I think I might have got it right. Here, Billinghurst respectively offers her views on the 13 different representations of the Dark Goddess and offers ways in which to work with them. There is a sense of reverence that is felt through her writing about the various aspects, and she alludes to deeper works which may be of interest to those wishing to go further down the rabbit hole of history, myth and folklore in connection with the Dark Goddess. And yes, exactly what I'm hoping the readers will do if they want to learn more. The final section is about working with the Dark Goddess, and there's no shortage of caution expressed by Billinghurst. She doesn't shrink back from exploring the enormity of working within the shadow of ourselves, nor does she try and pretty up the process to make it more palatable. Shadow work is intense, uncomfortable, and life-changing. And just because you have dipped your toe into this work once or twice doesn't mean that you are free from the gaze of the Dark Goddess. If anything, doing this work puts you on the radar. And then she does a quote from me, if I can bring. Just because you have worked with the Dark Goddess once or in one format or under the guidance of one particular teacher doesn't mean that you have completely embraced all of your shadow qualities, and therefore no longer need to undergo such work. Because, especially from my perception, shadow work is a lifetime journey of self-discovery. In previous videos, when I've talked about shadow work, I think I've quoted Robert Bly, who is a Jungian analyst, who said for the first, I can paraphrase him, the first 20 years of our lives, we put stuff in a bag that we carry around with us. And for the rest of our lives, we spend time dragging or trying to pull these things out of the bag. And the bag itself is our shadow. Back to Sarah's review. What really impressed me about this book is the appreciation for and acknowledgement of the fact that just because you are immersed in the excavation of the soul through shadow work doesn't mean you neglect the lighter aspects of the goddess. These labels we give to the goddess helps us to navigate through the various lessons that are provided through the interaction that we have with her. But we need to understand that when you work with an alteration of the goddess, or an aspect as I call them, you end up getting all of her, not just the parts you think you need. Billinghurst explains this by saying, working with the Dark Goddess does not necessarily mean that you are not working with the lighter aspects of the goddess, the divine feminine, either. This means to me that while we have lots of fancy descriptors for whatever iteration of the Dark Goddess we happen to be working with, that correspond with the qualities that we feel we need to access at the time, we also have access to the rest of her too. Doing shadow work with the Dark Goddess is not like feasting at a buffet. We have to acknowledge and accept that you will see all sides of the goddess and adjust accordingly. Personally, working with a Dark Goddess brings me closer to a part of me that needs softening. Working with a goddess such as the Morrigan brings about a lot of fire and intensity, that after that dies down, there is a sense of peace and stability that follows, that my soul craves for when I'm doing this work. And I suppose in a way I sort of feel that with Kali. Kali's one of the primary Dark Goddesses that I tend to have a drawing to, or she has a drawing to with me. And I find that I can turn to her and do work with her, usually through mantra and meditation. And afterwards, I find that sense of peace. Again, that is why my world is turning upside down externally. And I think that's why working with the Dark Goddess is so profound. And Sarah ends her review by saying, whether you are familiar with shadow work or just contemplating starting, encountering the Dark Goddess, which I'll put the links below to my publisher Moon Books, and they have on their website various outlets where you can obtain the book, including the ISBN number, so you can go to your local bookshop or library and request that they get it in. This book is an excellent guide on how to dovetail the interaction of the Dark Goddess into that work, full of useful information on the selection of Dark Goddesses as well as personal stories and poems. This book is going to remain on my shelf to be pulled out often for both reference, thank you Sarah, and for deeper work in that second half of the year brings. And I suppose for a lot of people, that second half, the darker half of the year from Samhain onwards, is a time where everything's sort of moving inward, and we tend to do a lot more shadow work then because all the energies are slowing down. I tend to work with the Dark Goddess regardless of seasons and energies. And just having said that, here in Australia, our summer is almost that internal reflection as well, as we try to escape the heat. Well, I do. I don't like being outside when it's over 35 degrees Celsius. So again, much blessings and gratitude to Sarrah October Young from Musing Mystical for the review of my book. As I said, it seems like you've really gotten to my head and you fully understand what I was trying to achieve with the book. And a lot of it, I think, comes from reading the introduction. So once again, much gratitude, and also to Moon Books. And if this interests you, so I'll put the link to the review below, and where you can also purchase the book. And if you've got another review of it, tag me on social media so I can find out. Thank you for listening. Blessings.